So we're going to do some live coding this morning of our retro Amazon, and what we're going to do is make a front end in React for creating a new user. So we have a login system already functioning where an existing user can log in. However, we do not have the adding a new user. So notice the backend route is, again, the URL is /add, and this is our backend. We basically generate a new Mongo ID. We spread the rec.body. Now coming across in the rec.body is probably just a full name, a password, and an email. So these are the three fields that are required for our back end: a full name, a password, and an email. So we get those three fields from our front end, and then we add a new property for created date. So a new user has these 5 fields. We take the current password that comes across in plain text, and we hash it using bcrypt. So our password will be hashed in our database. And then here's our database function call, add user. So this will insert a user into our Mongo database. And if we get an acknowledgement from our database that the user has been inserted, we generate an auth token, and we store that token in a cookie, and then we send a success message with a user with user ID created. Now, right away I can probably say that we need to send more information back besides just the insert ID and an auth token. Like for example, I know we store the first name, right? And we use that first name in a local storage. So I'll say user inserted ID. I probably don't need the insert ID as much. So here's a object. It's got a message, and let's add a property for a full name. Which is right here, comma. Sometimes it's okay. I was right. Where does the comma go? Comma goes here, and then I'll say full name colon new user full name. So refactor my backend to include the full name as well, because I know right now that's what I'm using on my front end. So just to boot this up, npm run start dev is my script, and I've already got something running, so I need to close that and run that command again, so I can open up my task manager and end the Node JavaScript runtime task. So then now I can run this command, and my server boots up, and I ping my Mongo database. Now just to open up my database and connect to my Mongo cluster and look at my retro Amazon users, I've got several users. And so I'll just test creating a new user with Charles Corrigan, and I'm going to test this real quick in Postman. So let me close all my tabs, close all tabs, save all my changes, save changes, save changes. Okay, so now I'm going to go into retro Amazon, users, add new user, localhost 3003, API users add, full name Charles Corrigan. C Corrigan at rankin.edu, password of password. Okay, so now I could see from my back end, I get a full name property back with Charles Corrigan. Before I didn't have that, right? So, you know, I was just sending information to my front end, not really thinking about what information I needed. Just like, hey, here's an ID and here's something showing that an auth token was created. And I can verify that this cookie is there with, you know, some permissions in it and the like. So that's my backend functioning. And if I just go to log in my user, if I log in as C Corrigan at rankin.edu, I get a welcome message if I log in. He is a customer. If I give a bad password, password incorrect. Okay, and I can hit my database and refresh. I get a new user here, 1 of 5. There's Charles Corrigan, and there's my user with the hash password. So back end working about what I would expect it to before I even touch the front end. Let's ask me later about that. And now let's open up my front end React. And I just close all my tabs because that's how my brain works. I gotta start from the beginning. Okay, we got a bunch of routes, and here's a login route. So probably I'm gonna generate a new element for a register user component. So I'm gonna create a new component called register form. And so we can kind of start with that. Inside of my components, I'm going to say register user.jsx. Register user form. I mean, that's a long component name, but register user form. It's long, but it's descriptive. And let's export default function register user form return a fragment with a h1 that says register user, register new user. Just to get this wired up at a very rudimentary level, we create the component, then we have to create the route, then we have to add it to the nav bar, and then we can test it. So step 1, create the component. Step 2, let's create a route in React Router. So /login. Up on my imports, let's bring it in. Import register user form from there. I'm going to hit tab, bring all that in. That allows me to go down to my routes, define a new route. So if you navigate to /register, it shows the register user form, and we send down the toast that will allow the little new user registration complete. So that is our front end route. So then we have to go to our nav bar and generate a link that goes there. And so our nav bar is in navbar JSX. And let's see. Here's a home. So all of this is if the user if the user is not logged in. If there's not a full name, show the login. of course, we may also, in this case, if there's not a full name, display the nav link class name of nav item, close my li, and this is a nav link to /register, class name of nav link, close nav link. Okay, now the problem with this is that there's no single parent, which can be fixed with a fragment. I think that's what you're not happy about. Okay, so let me tab all this over to get rid of all those red squigglies. So now if there is no, logged in user under, we're saving full name to our local storage. So if there's no information in local storage, then you see the option to register. And that'll at least give us the link. So let's boot this up, npm run dev. So this is running on 5173. Okay, now again, I have my user still persisting in local storage. Recommendation there is set a timer on deleting your user out of local storage as demonstrated prior. I have not implemented that yet. However, you guys should be able to do that. If I go to application and there's my full name, and if I delete that and refresh the page, now I see the link to register, which is what I would expect. If I click on, if I hover, I can see localhost /register, so it's taking me to the right route, and that's bringing up the right component. All right, so now we can start to build up this form, and of course we need first name, we need last name, we need bootstrap classes, we need a submit button. First name fields, and I would start that with a div, and let's kind of inspect what it did for us. Close the div. It is so funny to me, and I was saying this with I believe Atticus yesterday, that this is so smart that if you give it a comment like first name fields, that the code assist will generate all of this for you, but leave off the closing div. I mean, so incredibly smart, yet it always consistently is lacking like one character, one quote, one tag. That's incredible. So, okay, so here's a label for first name. Now that it's missing the bootstrap class name of form label. So let's add the class name of form label. I also, want to put this in like rows and columns. So maybe I'll do a div class name of row. And that'll allow me to put this in a class of call, I don't know, just to, so it's not going 100% of the screen. This will now just go like a third of it, right? Because you got to get call 4, add up to 12. So now let's add, let's see, last name field. Again, let's use the code assist, and there's your last name. Look how it's missing a div. That's incredible. Now, if I hit tab, of course I need to close my div. How is it so smart yet making the most basic mistake that you can make in day one of coding class? Okay, there's first name, last name. see if it picked up my comment here. See, now it's okay. There we go. Email address, label for email, form control email, forgetting the closing div. And the last is the password field. Label for input type of email. Okay. Just a little reminder here, and this is just a little theory, right? The benefit of input type of email over input type of text is on mobile devices. You'll get the mobile keyboard. If you just do an input type of text and you're looking at it on a mobile device, you won't get the default pop-up, the software keyboard to pop up, right? So when we say input type of email and you're looking at this on a mobile device, you get the software keyboard to pop up on the screen. So little benefit there. Now this is going to see, this is going to put these not how I want, right? Because I'm just saying this is going to go, this is going to like go across the screen, which is not my intended consequence. But let's just finish this up and see how it looks. Again, it's going to go. So it's just going to go in this row, 4, 4, 4, and so these three controls are going to be in a row, and then this one will be in its own row. What I wanted to do, and div class name call for, like if you have an empty column following this, right? So that'll just kind of, that'll put this in the first column and then a couple of that. Now another thing, you know, maybe we could do a flex box here and tell it to flex vertically instead of doing all this. So there's a couple of options. This is the easy one to just add some empty divs here. Can't say that I love this. I probably would refactor this into a flex box, but this is what comes to mind off the top of my head. So if I go to register new user, we are getting all of this going on, and other than that, I'll just add some margin between these controls and call it good. So on this one, I'll say margin top kind of 2, maybe a little bit of margin to the top of each one of these fellas here, MT-2, and quit closing localhost. And if I go to register, now we got some spacing. Of course, clicking the label will focus the appropriate control. This also picks up that these are email addresses that are in my cache in Google Chrome. Last names, first names that are also in settings there. Yes?
One thing that I like about using input type password, when you click on password, it automatically does it. So for instance, with Firefox, it will automatically give you the option of use a securely generated password.
Yep.
Without just only using one that you say.
Nice. Yeah. So you go here, and depending on, you can get some browser assist to generate that secure password. Now, it's interesting you're getting that on Firefox, and interestingly enough, I'm not getting that on Chrome. So I'm just kind of curious if I were to go Firefox. Oh, come on, teach. Download Firefox. Let me just install Firefox real quick.
Yeah, it does not work on Edge.
I've noticed a little, at least my observation, is Firefox gained some popularity. How many people in the class use Firefox as their primary browser? 2? That's probably 2 more than it was a couple years ago.
I've only used Firefox since Windows 98.
Impressive.
98.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Windows Vista.
You were alive then?
I was born in 98.
Great.
Okay, now we got Firefox. Let me hit my URL in Firefox. And yeah, there you go. So that's cool. Now there's also, what do you typically do for this? Because there's also the autocomplete attribute that we're leaving off, right? So autocomplete, if you guys remember autocomplete, there's a great article on autocomplete on MDN. MDN autocomplete with all the fields that'll help you kind of help your end users. For first name, autocomplete is given hyphen name. So if you go to here and say given hyphen name, let's save that up. And it'll help the browsers pull in the cached, even though it was already doing this. Some browsers will fill that in for you if you don't fill it in. However, to get it consistent across all browsers, you know, to get this feature, you want to put in autocomplete. So autocomplete of first name, autocomplete of family name. Autocomplete, if you want to turn it off, you could do that. Looking at the different values. Email, so autocomplete of email here. And then the new password, right? Autocomplete of new password. So let's turn that on, and then I bet you if I do autocomplete of new password, and then I open this up in Chrome, refresh. Good thing I didn't bet that I would have got the IntelliSense. Okay, now what do we need? We need a button and we need a function. And so let's add a couple of empty divs after this. Again, Flexbox is probably the better solution here, but hacking it the way I'm hacking it, div class name of form group, call for M2, close the div, and a button. Of course, we could confirm password. That would be a good practice for obvious reasons, so that users know the password that they're typing in. They don't have a typo. You should definitely do that in a real world application. Let's do button, type of submit, button primary, register user. And we should put all of this in a form tag. So don't forget your form tag. And let's just do an empty form tag. Now, I'm not going to have an action attribute, again, because we're using Axios to post. We're not using the built-in. So here's a form tag wrapping all of my form controls. And I'll say on submit, we're going to EVT this arrow. Let's make a function. Const on form submit EVT. Use this on form submit EVT on form submit EVT. Okay, so all I'm going to do is click the button, and then it should log all the values that are in the fields. Now EVT, I don't think this is going to work. So I'm not going to write that. I'm just going to say console log form submitted. So we're just going to test our event handler and inspect. Failed to reload. Oh, maybe I'm having a hard time reloading. Okay, no errors. So let's say A, B, C, D. Click on register at c.com. Form submitted. Of course, anytime you have data on the screen, you need hooks. So we're going to bring in use state and wire up some hooks for our different fields. And so let's do that. Import use state from React. Your hooks need to be up at the top of your function here, so we'll say first name, last name, email address, password, and let's see, label for input. So this will say value is, so you would say the state is controlled by our hook, so first name. And then on change event, EVT, arrow, set first name, and I'll EVT target value. So a real easy way to wire up the first name hook and change the values in there. And then we got to do the same thing for last name. Same thing for email. Set email address. Email address is the variable. Okay, now validation. I kind of showed how to do validation in a like user login. So if I go to my login form, kind of pulled in these different error messages. You could do some custom front end validation here, and you could definitely, you know, take this logic, and then if there's any errors, then you set the errors and you stop the submit button. Connor, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, we could go back to the button just for a quick moment.
Yeah, the button itself right here. Right, so anytime you have a form, you want to do some front-end validation, definitely consider how to do that here. I guess we can bring that in real quick. I'm just going to do a simple everything is required, right? So I'm just going to make sure there's some required fields. You good here, Connor?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So here I'll do like first name error. If not first name, we'll just say first name is required. Otherwise, we just say else no error. Okay, if not first name, then you say email is required, otherwise empty. And you can kind of just take this for a bare bones for last name, email address, and password. So we'll say last name error, not last name. We'll say last name is required. We already have an email one, so let's just follow that. And again, it makes sense to make sure that our front end and our back end are on the same page. I think they are. So let's just bring in the email error as we've written it before. And last is password error. What's up, Connor?
So with first of all, your email needs to be email address.
Good eye.
With the fact that we have first name error and last name error, we don't actually need a field dedicated to full name.
Yeah, I'm just going to concatenate them.
Okay.
Yep, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to add them together with the space.
So we can do that on the front end to make
Yeah.
it. Okay.
So here is our prevent default, and as we did over here in our login form, we could say if there's an error here, otherwise if there's an error here. Now set error is just a hook that displays a little error message in an alert. So let's do the error const error set error. And now, if first name error, missing a curly, else if last name error, missing a curly, else if email error, missing a curly, else if password error. Always, oh boy, Firefox starting a battle. Register. Now let's see. Console Axios error. Let's see. Clear that console. Okay. EVT console log. Form submitted. Let's see if the handler is still firing. Okay. Oh, well, of course, I'm setting the error message, but I'm not displaying it anywhere. So let's go ahead and grab a div that displays the error. And maybe, where you put this, let's just put it next to my register button. So now if there's an error, display the error. And so if I register my user, now the problem with the way I wrote it is it's very like one thing at a time. Right? You don't get the multi errors. So you could write that if else statement however you want. And obviously you could write it better. But I'm just getting that basic validation up and going here. And in the event that it passes, you want to clear the error, right? So at the start of this function, let's also let's set the error to empty to kind of clear the error, and then you're only setting it in the event that you need to. We are ready to bring in Axios. Yeah, so Connor saw this coming. Now what we'll do next is we need to concatenate first name and last name into the full name. So let's bring in Axios and import Axios from Axios. Okay, and here. Okay, so we were writing Axios calls with the promise syntax versus the asynchronous version of Axios. But we'll just say Axios. We can continue in that fashion. Now, if I remember right, it's API users add right? So register is a better name for it, but that's not what our backend is. So this is posting to our backend, which is running on port 3000. Now here I say 3003 is my backend. I don't have anything in the production yet, or I should say currently. The second object will be for the first name and the will be for the full name. And so we would do something like full name colon, which is a concatenation of the string first name and the last name. So full name, again, that's the expected from our back end. We're expecting a property called full name. So full name is this. Email address is email address, and password is password again. Email address is actually email. So you have to do it this way. The property is email, the value is email address. Right? So our backend is expecting something called email, but we called it email address, so you got to separate the two. But then password is what our backend is expecting, and because it's the same name, we got the shorthand syntax there. So full name, email, and password. Then we do this. Unless there's an error, then we catch that error and do this. Reminder that this post method returns a promise, which you can see right here. The return data type on Axios.post is a promise. So it's a promise for data. And so this is, even though this is a form of asynchronous programming. Remember that callbacks, promises, and async await, those are three forms of asynchronous programming. So this is a asynchronous method call, post, because it's returning a promise. Okay, if it's a response, then let's just console log response data. So the data will be what was sent back from our back end. Remember, the data has just two things in it, really. It has a message, right? It has a message, and it has a full name, right? So let's log the message and the full name. Response data message. So let's just respond, and then we can kind of go from there. Otherwise, console log. We could just do a console log of the error message. Okay, so I'm going to create a user, and then I'll just delete them right away, and just create that user a couple times just to get through this. Like, what do I want to do in this event? So of course our validation should still be working, but if I register a user, I'm taking a look at the console. Connor is going to be in my system. Is it OR? Okay, so if I clear my console and I register my user, it does say user added. Now I didn't also put in the, all I did was the message. So we also know that there's a first name. So let's also console log response data full name property, which is also being sent from our back end. And so let's go ahead and delete Connor here. If I refresh, Connor is 1 of 6. There's Connor. Let's delete adios so that we can recreate him. and clear my console and register my user. Now I've got his data there, which is really all we need to then kind of follow syntax once we log in the user. I think we're barking up the right tree here. Let's take a look at our login form, and on a successful login, we set the full name. It looks like I do something with a role here, in which case they're a customer, so I also need my route to send back the role array. And I look like I set, so I got a local storage, and I do a setter for set full name. So I need to pass down these two methods to set user role and set full name so that I could do the same thing on user registration. So let me refresh and delete Connor again. Let me go to my back end now and send the array. Again, there should be a role array is new user.role. So I'll send that now to my front end in the role property. Now I need to pass down these two functions, set user role and set full name. So that's back here. So in the login form, okay, so I need to receive those, set full name and set user role and show toast. So let me receive all three of these with a set of curlies. Show toast, set full name, set user role, separated by commas. And now instead of console logging the first name, let's set full name. Not really doing anything with the message. Let's do a show toast, response data message success. Now my message has that token in it, which really, I'm gonna take that out. I'm just gonna say, you know, I'm just going to refactor this to say new user dot full name added. So my message will just say that new user added. So this will be what ultimately I end up using in my toast. It'll say new user Bob Gibson added. So getting the front end to play nicely with the back end. So let's go back to my front end. So my toast will say new user Bob Gibson added. Set the full name. Let's also set local storage. So here we're adding the item for full name. And we have to use navigate. So to use navigate, it's actually three parts. We import it, we instantiate it, and we call navigate. So we navigate home. So let's import use navigate from React Router DOM. Import use navigate from React Router DOM. Let's const navigate is use navigate, and then on success we navigate home. Now our errors are going to be very similar. Our catch block is going to be pretty similar to what we did before. Again, what's hard about this catch block is it just depends on how the data comes back from your back end, right? So let's finish out the success block first. Let's test it. So let's clear the console and refresh here. There should be no Connor. Okay. This is good. Connor Woodard has been added. Now, we are noticing that we don't see books. Connor is a customer, and do customers see books? So let's refresh. Connor is a customer. If I look at roles, customers can list books of true. So I gotta finish the job of no cookies, right? So I need to continue my post. Object 1 is excuse me, this post method, the first argument is the URL to the back end. Second argument is a JSON object of what's in the body. And then the third object is this with credentials of true. Okay, so that will send the cookie to the front end. Again, I just created Connor and you saw the cookie didn't exist. So now if I log out Connor and refresh, we see register. I delete Connor from my database. Delete Connor, adios. Okay, no Connor. Go back to registration. So it's kind of interesting, you know, notice here it's suggesting these are users that are cached in my Chrome browser. So like under settings, you can go to like users and like, that way it's always there. But also as I tab in Woodard, there's other suggestions. It's like, hey, I've noticed you typed this before. So these are like two different caches that it's pulling from. Just pointing that out. connorword@gmail.com and password. Again, go to console, clear out any error messages, click register. Okay. And this is good because we're now at least getting the cookie and cannot read property of null at book item 16. Book item 16. So let's kind of glance at book item. Haven't looked at book item here. That's our back end. Haven't looked at book item today, but it got to the point where user role includes, okay, so user role, in this case, we set user role and this is the line that's crashing. And so what it's saying here is that user role is null. And so I'm having I must have forgot to set my user role, which I did. So let's set user role. to response data role. And now user role will not be null. And so Connor, when Connor logs in, he should not see the edit button because he doesn't have that role. So let's do the process again. Clear it out. This is good. What I need to do is delete full name, go through the process again, delete Connor, adios, and refresh. And let's just shut her down sometimes to give it a fresh reset. Localhost. Let's take a look at the console.
I think the cookie might still be there.
The cookie's still there. Good, thank you for the reminder. And so now, okay. Now we can register Connor. Thank you for the reminder. Connor. Connor Woodard. Password of password. Now when we register, aha, Connor is a customer and can see the book list. And the cookie is sent over, and the role is set, and the first name is set. We have registered a new user successfully. It's a good day. This is the end of this example, and you guys get to work on labs.